at 5, video caught the moment a 21-year-old man was killed by two men trying to steal his gold necklace. The deadly shooting happened back in May of 2023 in North Miami Beach. Now, 2 years later, one of the accused killers is hoping for a judge to let him go home and wait for his trial. NBC6 reporter Christian Colon joins us with what the judge decided.
You know, if there was an ongoing theme of this channel, the Actual Justice Warrior channel that covers a lot of crime-related stories, obviously you could say it's the soft on crime policies and how they fail. It's, of course, a bunch of different types of instances, breakdowns, response videos, and whatnot. But I think the great takeaway that I want you guys to have out there in the audience is the understanding that criminals are not smart. Criminals are not intelligent. Criminals are often stupid people, brutes that use physical force in order to get instant gratification because they cannot and do not think out the long-term consequences of their actions. And a perfect example is this story out of Miami Beach, Florida. And you just heard in the open, this is about a robbery of a gold chain that ultimately ended up leading to a murder. And I want to make something 100% clear about this. When you look at the surveillance video of this case, they already obtained the chain, they already got what they wanted, and the murder occurred after the fact, so it wasn't even to gain the chain, it was as punishment for the guy showing some kind of resistance, because again, criminals not smart, don't think out their actions. But the reason this story is in the news is because the main suspect in this shooting wants to be released pending trial because he says he's an innocent baby angel Aladdin. But to make it 100% clear to you guys out there in the audience, the reason why this guy was caught is because him and his girlfriend were posting images on social media holding the chain that they stole from this guy that they murdered basically the next day or that same evening. That's why this guy is under the threat of a serious prosecution in the state of Florida, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Surveillance video captured when two men with guns pulled up on 21-year-old Malcolm Johnson Jr. to steal his gold necklace. As one man fought the victim, the other appeared to pick up the victim's items from the floor. The robbery turned to murder when the thieves started shooting. The victim collapsed as the killers drove away.
So we saw this footage in the open of this video. I do want to point out that the blur that is presented right there is done by the local news, and that's because this person ultimately ended up dying as a consequence of his wounds. But the description that they gave right there is far more accurate to what happened than they did in the open, which is they had already obtained the property. They are both people who are armed with firearms at this moment in time. This person is not even resisting the robbery at this point, and as a punishment, this man with his hands up was shot and killed in cold blood in the streets. And by the way, this is a legitimate hands up, don't shoot kind of moment, unlike Michael Brown, which gained all of that national media attention. You will not hear Black Lives Matter discuss what happened to this victim, a 21-year-old man who was quite literally just walking in a neighborhood wearing a gold chain, because they don't care about black on black crime. They don't care about these kind of perpetrators. And unfortunately, if they were going to highlight anyone or anything related to this, it would be the shooter in this case, trying to get a reduced sentence or trying to get him out of prison, even though this is unambiguously a cold-blooded murderer. Now, the only dispute, the only defense that I think the suspect has in this particular case is whether or not he is that man who pulled the trigger on that video, because it's not 100% clear. But of course, the police have built up a well-thought-out investigation. The prosecutor has a case, and there are multiple layers of evidence in order to tie him to this vehicle, tie him to this scene, tie him to this firearm, and tie him to the property that was stolen in this particular case.
Who is in this picture? Who is the picture in this picture?
Marcus, and that is the picture matching the description of the victim's medallion.
Marcus Ely is in jail for allegedly killing over this gold necklace that police say he took home to his girlfriend to snap selfies. Pictures showed the two posing with the piece of jewelry just hours after the real owner's life was cut short.
I mean, come on, guys. Come on. The girlfriend, by the way, is still here. This murder happened 2 years ago. She is waiting for this man, waiting for this killer, waiting for this murderer who brought her the ill-gotten goods just hours after the crime. And by the way, they're both posing with them. Again, it would be a crazy coincidence if this guy who matches the description of the shooter in this video, who happens to be a violent criminal, just happened to obtain a similar looking chain or an identical looking chain that particular evening and decided to pose with it and post photos of it on social media, again holding it up like it's a prize. This is absolutely idiotic behavior, clearly obviously indicative of guilt, and of course this guy should not be released onto the streets because again, he didn't murder this person. I know a lot of people want to say innocent Baba Angel Aladdin just trying to feed his starving family in order to get the property. He murdered this man after he got the property because he was angry, because he lacked control. Again, he shot an unarmed man with his hands up after the robbery occurred as a punishment.
You have one assumption on top of another assumption on top of another assumption in this case. You have a flip. Is what you have. That's really what this case is about.
Today, Ely's attorney slammed the state attorney's case as weak and requested his client get house arrest to wait for trial.
Now look, the defense attorney has to advocate for his client, so I'm not going to go too hard on this particular attorney because he has to make this case, and obviously house arrest, any kind of out of custody position for him to be in, is better than waiting in jail or in prison pre-trial before you're actually convicted. We all understand that, but the fact is, he's claiming that the case against his client is incredibly weak. Now, of course, I told you about the circumstantial evidence of him having the property that was stolen from this crime, which, by the way, circumstantial evidence is more than enough evidence to convict. I know a lot of dumbasses who get all their information from procedural shows don't believe that, but everything that's not a confession or eyewitness testimony is circumstantial evidence. DNA evidence is circumstantial evidence. The video evidence is circumstantial evidence. Do we all understand that that is crucial forensic evidence, all falls under the category of circumstantial? But in addition to that, there's also direct evidence that definitely puts this guy at the scene of the crime, which will be explained to you in just a moment.
But prosecutors were against any form of release out of jail since they are confident Ely is a killer, especially since the second man seen on video took a 20-year prison deal and flipped on his co-defendant.
Defendant agrees that he is willing to testify in open court against Marcus Ely, if required by the court or the state, including testifying that Marcus Ely fired the gun to murder victim Malcolm Avery Johnson Jr.
Mario Fogler told police Ely was the shooter. Additionally, Ely's brother called police to confess he recognized the man on the surveillance video as one of his own.
Yeah, that's right. The other person in the surveillance video, the other person who participated in the robbery, has already pled guilty, has already received 20 years in prison for his role in this particular crime. So not exactly a sweetheart plea deal, in order to testify that the suspect who pulled the trigger is in fact Marcus Ely. I also want to point out that the suspect, and I was exaggerating the graininess of the video, but you could see it for yourself, looks exactly like him, so much so that his brother identified him from the surveillance video and reported the tip in to the police. So you have multiple layers of evidence that shows that this guy is in fact the guy, and you have the defense attorney telling us that, oh, the case is incredibly weak. It's only based on eyewitness testimony, which is direct evidence, and circumstantial evidence, like, you know, everything that surrounds the physical evidence of this case, and it's caught on video. I don't think that's proof positive that it is likely that my client did do. I think he might be being framed. This might be 2-year-old AI surveillance video that was put together by the dumbass co-defendant in this particular case that already pled guilty. No, not likely. Not likely at all. This guy very likely did do. It's only alleged because he hasn't been convicted yet, but I will not be surprised to see him be convicted and serve a lengthy prison sentence in Florida for this crime.
I can't in any good conscience say that it would be safe for the community to return this defendant to his home where the law enforcement has gone to the extent of putting a poll cam to observe what's going on.
And at the end of today's hearing, the judge denied granting him a bond. She felt the community would be a lot safer with him behind bars, especially since police were already surveying his house through a secret camera before this chain murder even happened. Ely has pleaded not guilty.
So look, I gotta give the judge a lot of credit right here, and for those of you who think it's a no-brainer, obviously this individual should be held pre-trial. I will just point out that we've done story after story on this channel throughout the years of people being determined to be overwhelmingly guilty. The evidence is even stronger than the evidence presented right here, only for the judge to say this person is likely an innocent Baba Angel Aladdin who just wants to feed his family, therefore we are going to let him out in order to explore his options, maybe reoffend again, maybe become somebody who's frequent in this courtroom for other crimes, only to be released repeatedly because that's what we do in this particular courtroom. Well, this judge said absolutely not, and she also highlights that this guy was such an obvious criminal, he was already under police surveillance at his house for other crimes that they have yet to bring up when this murder had occurred. So yeah, this guy's obviously a danger. He is known to be a danger. He should not be out there. And the point that I want to make again for you guys out there in the audience is that the murder in this particular case was totally unnecessary in the way that they wanted to accomplish the robbery. They already got the property, they already got the stuff, and he decided to shoot him anyway just to have fun. And again, he's so stupid. He does not think this out so much that he posted photos on social media of him with the property that very evening. This is not somebody you can trust to be out on the streets. He's not smart, and he's violent, and he's dangerous. So yes, he should be held in custody pre-trial. But again, the overall message is that he did it to himself, because these random shootings, they're actually kind of difficult to solve, even with this little bit of surveillance video that we have of this particular incident. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me if you support, links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about an absolutely maddeningly stupid case out of Florida. Till next time.